Welcome back to another edition of Viper Bites. And this time we're talking about 10 tight ends you can get behind in 2021. Wait a sec. That sounded a little bit different in my head. Anyway, these are my top 10 tight ends going into 2021. You're going to want to pay attention. There's a little bit of mix up at the back end. We know there's a lot of different types of opinions there when we're talking about that 4 through 10 and how those guys are going to come out and out. We know 3 to 1. There's some changes there as well. These are my rankings. I'm going to send to you here, so take a listen and see what we got. We're going to start things off here right off the get-go with number 10, Mike Gesicki. Now, you're probably wondering, why is Gesicki rated this high? Well, you know what? He was in ADP right now. He's going off the board as tight end 13, which, if you think about it, is a little bit lower than what he performed to last year. He scored as the tight end 7 last year, with 149.5 points last year. 85 targets, 53 receptions, 703 yards, 6 touchdowns. Why am I high on Gesicki? It's this Dolphins offense. I really like the things they're doing. I talked about it before when they drafted Jalen Waddle, that the Dolphins wanted to open things up and they were ready to let Tua sling it. Then they went out and they got themselves Will Fuller. Both Fuller and Waddle on the outsides are going to create some serious mismatches for Gesicki in the middle and up that seam. Safeties are going to have to play a little bit further back. They're going to have to respect the speed in which the Dolphins are going to be playing with, not to mention some of the other guys like Jakeem Grant that are going to see some time there as well. Gesicki is going to have all kinds of opportunities to exploit the underbelly of teams' defenses, especially when he's not the number one guy that they're game planning for. So when you're thinking about tight ends, he's a guy you're going to want to get a little bit later that's going to help you right off the get-go. Now, we've also got Tua entering his second season. Last year was his rookie. There's some growing pains there, but he was also 2 things going against him. One, he was recovering from that hip injury that was very significant, that kind of held him out of college there a little bit, held him back a little bit in the pros. We saw it, a little bit of the mobility starting to come back towards the end of the season. Now he's got a full year of recovery, as well as another full season of understanding the playbook there in Miami. So this Dolphins offense is going to be explosive. And then Gesicki is going to be that guy we're not talking about yet, but we should be talking about that. I think could really challenge for a tight end 5 rating towards the end of the year because, man, that seam is going to be open for him. I think his touchdowns are going to go up from 6 to possibly 10, and I think that's going to give him tremendous value going forward. Now, when we flip over here at number 9, Noah Fant. Why is Noah Fant up here this high? He's got an ADP of tight end 11. Last year, he was the tight end 12 and scoring with 140.5 points. That kind of gives us a little bit of an idea of where he's going to be. Now, at what he is doing here, we talked about that explosive offense that Miami's going to have. I think Denver could have just as an explosive offense. Jerry Jeudy in his second season. Cortland Sutton coming back from that ACL. You got guys like KJ Hamler. He's there as well. So you got 4 great receiving options there in the Mile High City. Now, what's going to happen with that quarterback play? That's to be determined. Drew Lock is there. Another year maybe in that system might help him. Teddy Bridgewater's there. Teddy Bridgewater's not a guy who's going to beat you deep, but he's a guy who's going to be there consistent. He's going to be able to be a little bit more accurate than Drew Lock. Drew Lock's going to be able to stretch the field. So this will be an interesting battle to watch at the quarterback position as training camp goes on. But for me, Noah Fant, we look at these 93 targets last year with Drew Lock under center, not to mention a couple other quarterbacks kind of mixed in there as well. 62 receptions, 673 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, that's what held Fant back last year from making any kind of progress into the top 10 is those 3 touchdowns. This is a team that's going to challenge for a wild card spot all season long. This is a very good team, defensive, offensive. Now, when you're talking about a team that's going to be able to control the clock a little bit of a running game with Javonte Williams, with Melvin Gordon, short passes to Noah Fant, I think he's going to have a good season where you're looking at probably 85 receptions, probably closer to 850 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think is probably where you're going to see Noah Fant fit into. Now, before we move into the top 8, I'm going to give you a little bit of a idea who did not make this list this year. First off, Dallas Goedert. I know people are a lot higher on him. That he's got an ADP of tight end 8. Last year, he was a tight end 18. So I don't quite get where this hype train's been for Dallas Goedert. Everyone's like, well, Zach Ertz is gone. Zach Ertz is going to get cut. He's going to get traded. He's going to get this. Zach Ertz didn't go anywhere yet. And for me to move Dallas Goedert in that top 10 seems a little premature. 65 targets, 46 receptions, 524 yards, 3 touchdowns. We're not sure what this offense is going to look like. this year. They had some serious injuries on that offensive line that kind of hindered this offense from really getting into any kind of flow last year. So I'm pumping the brakes on Dallas Goedert and this Eagles offense right now. Another guy who I missed, and I know I'm going to hear about this one, Robert Tonyan. Last year, he was the tight end for 166.8 points. His ADP has got him going off the board as tight end 9. Last year, we look at the numbers, 52 receptions. I think he had 59 targets, so very effective in those touches that he got an opportunity to get. 586 yards, 11 touchdowns. I do not think this is going to be sustainable going to the season. Lots of people believe he's going to be able to hit that double digits again. I'm not there. I'm not quite buying it. It scares me off a little bit. I really believe there's going to be a touchdown regression there. Not in the Green Bay Packers offense. I think Aaron Rodgers' last dance, swan song, is going to be absolutely beautiful to watch, but it's not going to help Tonyan this year. I think Randall Cobb is going to be sneaky. I think it's going to be one of those Aaron Rodgers is going to be so petty that this is the receiver that the Packers got for him. He's going to prove them that I'm going to make this work. Now, back to my rankings. We talked about Gesicki at 10. We talked about Fant at 9. At number 8, we're going to head to New England, and we're going to get the big guy in there, Jonnu Smith. He's currently got an ADP of tight end 13. Last year, guess what? He was the tight end 13, 138.4 points. This is in a Tennessee Titans offense last year that was very run heavy and really got their passing game based on efficiency. Now, we look at these 65 targets. He had 41 receptions, 448 yards, 8 touchdowns. Dude got paid to come to Massachusetts. He got paid to be a Patriot. 4 years, $50 million, $15 million signing bonus. This is not the money you pay for a blocking tight end. Let's be honest. And Hunter Henry, yeah, they brought him in. They paid him money too, but Hunter Henry hasn't been healthy, and he's already banged up in training camp, missing some time there. We're talking about a tight end who had a 30% red zone target rate in Tennessee. Expect that number to go up in New England, is where he could be the number 1 target machine there before Mac Jones or Cam Newton or however this plays out. He's a very friendly option for a passer. Now, the other thing, look at his neck. That is a huge neck. Neck size matters. I don't know why. Neck size matters. Put him in your lineup. Tight end 8 going into 2021. Now, who else do we got? Coming in at number 7, TJ Hawkinson. Now, you're saying, yo, Matt, you're way too low on TJ Hawkinson. He's the number 4. He's the number 5. You know what? He's even challenging for number 3. No, he's not. You can't put him there. Last year, he was the tight end 3. I get it. 169.8 points. I get it. ADP has him sitting at the tight end 6 right now. Okay, so I'm not too far off based on ADP. 101 targets. Hey, you know what? Targets are great. 67 receptions, 723 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's with Matt Stafford playing. That's with Matt Stafford and Marvin Jones playing. He's got a cast this year. No Kenny Golladay. No Marvin Jones. Goff is no Matt Stafford. And then you think about it, who does he have? Tyrell Williams, Rashard Perryman. You're like, dude, he's going to get such a great target share. I don't think this offense is going to have an opportunity to do much. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's going to be very effective in this offense. I think he's going to be the big target guy. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1, the passing option number 1 when this is all said and done. But I don't think this game script is going to help the Detroit Lions this year. Dallas, when you talk about this is a team in Detroit that's going to be trailing a lot of games. Well, good. They're going to be passing, right? Not necessarily to TJ Hawkinson. They're not going to get those big passes down the field to Hawkinson. He's more effective underneath. He's not going to stretch those seams. I think the real benefit here is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's going to be able to stretch that field a little bit. But Hawkinson, I don't think Goff is going to be able to rely on short passing, especially in the end zone where these tight ends, when we're talking about these tight ends here, especially the 4 through 10, 4 through 12, whatever those numbers are, the difference maker between these in your fantasy points is those touchdowns. And I don't see Detroit scoring, let alone scoring at the tight end position very often in 2021. Now, moving on to my number 6 ranked tight end, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, ADP has him right where he belongs, tight end 5. Last year, he finished as a tight end 6 at 163.4 points. If you go back a little bit farther into, I believe it was 2019, he had 98 targets, 64 receptions, 852 yards, and 10 touchdowns. This put him as a tight end 3 back in 2019. Now, we're a couple years removed from that. You look at his 2020 numbers, 88 targets, a little bit of a drop down, 58 receptions, 701 yards, 7 touchdowns. So I think going into this year, Mark Andrews is right in that 5-6 kind of range. I think is a safe spot for him. You had some additions here in Rashad Bateman, Tylan Wallace through the draft, throwing a little bit of Sammy Watkins. Marquise Hollywood Brown is still there. This is an improved receiving core that the Ravens have. And I think Lamar Jackson is going to be able to throw the ball a little bit more. And I think teams are going to have to focus on some of these other weapons other than Mark Andrews next year, where their teams are kind of like, hey, you know what? We're going to focus on Lamar Jackson. We're going to stop what he does. And then we're going to make sure we're focusing on Mark Andrews. Now this year, I think with Rashad Bateman, I think he's the real deal. When he comes back in week 4, week 5 from that hernia operation, I think this offense is really going to take that next step to that next level. So expect Mark Andrews to come off a little bit slow off the get-go. Maybe he gets the targets, but he's not going to be able to get that separation until Rashad Bateman comes in. Once Bateman comes back in this lineup, this offense is going to open up, and it's going to be really fun to watch. Now, my number 5 tight end from the Washington football team, Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas was the tight end 5 last year, 163.9. You're hearing all these numbers I'm saying, 163. There's very little separation as far as fantasy points is concerned. You really can't go wrong in how you rank these guys based on last year's numbers. So you're kind of trying to project what these offenses look like going into 2021. ADP currently has Logan Thomas as the tight end 7, so they kind of dropped him a little bit back from where he finished. You look at this, 110 targets last year, 110 targets, 72 receptions, 670 yards, 6 touchdowns. This is playing with quarterbacks that we don't know. Taylor Heinicke was there. I think Case Keenum was there. I couldn't even tell you who the quarterback was in Washington half the time. Alex Smith got a couple little games in there as well. So we did not have very consistent quarterback play in the nation's capital. Enter Ryan Fitzpatrick, the gunslinger himself, the bearded warrior, whatever you want to call him. He is in Washington, and this is going to be another one of those fun offenses to watch. Think about it. You got Terry McLaurin, he's coming back, and he's one of the top wide receivers in the league. He's got helping Diami Brown to stretch this field. Curtis Samuel's there to help work some stuff underneath. They're already talking about Antonio Gibson again being the Christian McCaffrey of this offense, where they're going to be able to put him in every kind of roles. Adam Humphries is there. You can't just focus on Logan Thomas this year. You can't just focus on Terry McLaurin. This is going to be a team that's going to be able to spread the ball out. And you know what? The tight end position is going to benefit here in the long run. I believe this offense is going to be very good. They got a strong defense. They got a good offense. Washington's going to be a great team this year. Very good chance they can win this division. It's going to be between them and Washington, or them and Dallas, when it's all said and done. But give me Logan Thomas as my tight end 5 going into the season. Now, a tight end 4. The rookie himself, the unicorn, whatever you want to call him, Kyle Pitts. Now, we're talking about a guy who's going off the board already as a rookie, as a tight end 4. Now, we look at some of his college numbers because we don't have nothing to really compare him to yet. In 2019, 54 receptions, 649 yards, 5 touchdowns. Nothing crazy, nothing that stands out, pokes out, kind of jumps at you right away. Now, in 2020, he had like 8 games. This is an 8-game schedule. 8 games, 43 receptions, 770 yards, 12 touchdowns. 12 touchdowns in 8 games. This guy is going to be a match-up nightmare for every team. That NFC South, look out. This guy is coming for you. Now, I got to give shout-out to my boy there, Bo. Bo, if you're watching this, you're the one who put him in there as a unicorn. You're the big hype man for Kyle Pitts. You're probably saying, you know what, Matt? You're probably too low on him. But that rookie tight end success production stands out to me. It's going to be there. Now, I think he's going to have more targets and volume than what some other rookies of the past have come across. We look at some of the greater rookie seasons that we've seen in our time. Evan Ingram, 64 receptions, 722 yards, 6 touchdowns. Jeremy Shockey, 74 receptions, 894 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rob Gronkowski, 42 receptions, 546 yards, 10 touchdowns. These are the 3 best rookie tight end seasons that we're talking about. This puts him in with a lot of the guys that we talked about. We talked about Jonas Smith there at number 8, very similar to what Gronk had done as a rookie. So for Kyle Pitts to come in, and we're thinking he's going to put up Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, 1,000-yard type seasons, pump the brakes there a little bit. He might get there eventually. I think he's probably a year or two out from that. But you look at like those numbers are screaming. Number 4 maybe a little bit high, but I love him so much because he's talking about a guy who's 6'6", 240 pounds, runs a 4.44. He's basically Mike Evans at the tight end position. So that's something that you kind of bump him up a little bit. You look at Atlanta, they're going to be running a lot of 2 tight end sets. Hayden Hurst is going to be getting there as well. Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, 2 good options on the outside. Russell Gage is going to threaten Kyle Pitts too much as far as the targets, but Russell Gage is going to get himself some love from Matt Ryan. Now, the other thing we got to take a look at, I just got to throw this out here. When you're looking at tight ends drafted inside the top 10, in which Kyle Pitts was, you got Vernon Davis, his rookie season, 20 receptions, 265 yards, 3 touchdowns. TJ Hawkinson, we talked about him a little bit earlier, his rookie year, 32 receptions, 367 yards, 2 touchdowns. Eric Ebron, when he came out, 25 receptions, 248 yards, 1 touchdown. I think it's realistic to believe that he's going to come in about the 64, 65 reception mark, probably close to 750 yards, and I'm going to throw out 5 or 6 touchdowns for Kyle Pitts in his rookie season. I think that's kind of where the floor is set. I think the ceiling could be a lot higher. That's why he could go either way for me, but right now I'm going to keep him at my number 4 spot. Now, the top 3, before we move on to top 3, we've still got Kyle Pitts here on the screen. Let's talk about what happened in the last couple seasons at the tight end position. In 2020, the drop-off from tight end 1 to tight end 3 was 136 points through weeks 1 through 16. We're looking at this closely, and I think Travis Kelce was the clubhouse leader last year. Logan Thomas was number 3, or Robert Tonyan was number 3, depending on what kind of scoring you're using. That's a big drop-off between 1 and 3. Now, if we go back to 2019, it was a little bit closer. The difference between tight end 1 and tight end 5 was 45 points. In 2019, it was Kelce, Ertz, Andrews, Kittle, and Waller that led the league at the tight end position. So in 2021, are we going to see a reflection of 2020, or are we going to kind of go back to 2019 a little bit? I really think it's still going to be more like 2020. I think you're going to have the top 3, and then there's going to be a tier break, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, wherever you want to go from there. It is going to be a cluster of players that are going to be battling all season for that right there. So if you can't get those top 3 tight ends that we're about to mention in your draft, don't worry. You're going to get some good value a little bit later. That's going to give you a tight end that you might have at your tight end 14 who could give you the same value as the tight end 4. Now, without further ado, coming in at number 3, welcome back, George Kittle. George Kittle's ADP currently has him as the tight end 2. In 2020, he was the tight end 19. He only played 8 games, and he still finished as a tight end 19. That should tell you all you need to know about the tight end position. Now, in 2020, however, he had the 3rd most points per game on average at 15.6. So we got him slotted in right where we want. We know there's a top 3. There's a clear hierarchy of the tight end position. In those 8 games, though, we talked about him finishing as a tight end 19, 125 points. In 8 games, 48 receptions, 634 yards, 2 touchdowns, 63 targets. It's very plausible that Kittle could challenge both Waller and Kelce as a tight end 1 going into the season. Would not surprise me either way. He's got that kind of talent. We know San Francisco's got a good offense. We know they're going to be a good team all season as long as they avoid the injury bug. That's me knocking on wood. But back in 2018, 2019, Kittle had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. 2018, let's take a look at this. 136 targets, 88 receptions, 1,377 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2019, we talked about him being a stud. Well, 107 targets, 85 receptions, 1,053 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's what he had in 2019. Now, we talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. If he can stay healthy, he's a good quarterback. Now, these numbers were basically done with a combination of like C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins and the likes of Garoppolo when he was in there for those couple of games. Trey Lance is a huge upgrade, and the tight end position, they love themselves a security blanket. So sooner Lance gets in there, the sooner the Kittle stock is going to keep on jumping. Now, at number 2, I'm going to go off the board here a little bit. I know everyone else is probably saying, Kelce's number one. He's the best tight end in the game. Hard to argue. But the dude shaved his beard off, and that is just wrong. So I'm dropping him down in the rankings to number 2, Travis Kelce. He is going off at ADP number 1. He was a tight end 1 in PPR scoring last year, 312.8 points. That's a 20.9 average. Five straight 1,000-yard seasons dating back to 2016. We're talking about a guy in 2020 in 15 games, 105 receptions. That's second in tight ends. Second, 1,416 yards and 11 touchdowns. Now, those yards, that 1,416 was second amongst all pass catchers, trailing only Stephon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. Now, those 11 touchdowns, that put him 5th amongst all pass catchers. So we know Travis Kelce is going to be up there. You see him going off at in drafts, first round, 10th, 9th, 10th kind of thing. I've seen him go off, depending on the scoring, as high as number 3 off the board in Superflex if it's a tight end premium. So Kelce is going to be somewhere up there. But now the difference between him and my number 1 guy is I think Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is going to cut in there a little bit. This offense is going to be fun to watch. It's going to be hard to predict how many points they're going to put up per game because it's going to be a lot. Now, we talk about him finishing at number 2, but at number 1 is the guy who had more receptions than him, who had 107 receptions last year. Currently, my number 1 tight end, Darren Waller of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, he's going off ADP at tight end 3 behind both Kelce and Kittle. In 2020, he was the tight end 2 in PPR, scoring 278.6 points. That's quite the drop-off. You talk about 312 to 278. Kelce, that just shows you how dominant Travis Kelce really was. Waller himself is no slouch, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, 90 receptions in 2019, 107 receptions in 2020. A little bit deeper, 2019 with those 90 receptions, he had 1,145 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2020, 107 receptions, 1,196 yards, 9 touchdowns. He was 4th in the NFL in receptions at 107. And let's not show he's got a quarterback too. We know Patrick Mahomes can do all kinds of things. That offense is going to be great. But the Raiders' offense was a top 12 offense last year. And Derek Carr is coming off a 3 straight 4,000-yard passing season. So he can get the job done. Now, what separates Waller from Kelce is that target share. I think Waller is going, you look at these guys they got there, Henry Ruggs and John Brown are kind of going to be those deep threats. You got Hunter Renfrow. He's going to be there doing stuff underneath. Edwards is there, who's getting a lot of hype here in camp right now. But the reality is none of these guys are going to be taking anything away from Waller. They'll do just enough to get the defense's attention because Ruggs and Brown can stretch teams out pretty good, just like Mecole Hardman there in Kansas City. But once at the end of the day, Waller is the number 1 option for the Raiders, whereas Kelce is a 1A or 1B with Tyreek Hill. With the reception numbers, and we talk about it, maybe the touchdowns go up for him, maybe they go down. I don't know how it's going to shape up. But for me right now, Darren Waller is my tight end 1 going into the season. And you know what? If you have Kittle, if you have Kelce there at number 1, I'm not going to blame you. They're both fantastic options. Waller's number 1. And just remember, as we're talking about these positions and the players and everything else that's going into this, there is a lot of room for error in that 4 to 12 range. There's going to be so much mix-up. We're going to see guys come out of nowhere that are going to do fantastic things at the tight end position. There's going to be guys that come out like Logan Thomas last year. No one predicted him being a top 3, top 4 tight end. Well, at the end of the season, when the dust settled, that's exactly where he was. So we know there's someone going to come out there. For me, I really like Mike Gesicki to be that guy. I think he's going to make that next jump this year at number 10. So with that said, we've gone through this whole list. You know who I got at my tight ends. We're going to come up with the quarterbacks a little bit later. That's going to be a different show. We're going to break that down for you. Any questions, you make sure you head over to dynastyvipers.com. Check out the work that we're doing out there. We got some good content being produced daily. And, of course, make sure you stick around on this YouTube channel. Go surf around a little bit. And, you're going to find some good stuff here because we've got all kinds of video content. We got top 10 lists. We got Behind the Grind. We got a Debbie show coming down. We got a little bit of a sports betting show on the way as well. So you're going to want to make sure you're tuning in, subscribing, smashing that like button, as the kids say, because we got all kinds of good stuff coming on down the pipe. And, of course, the Vipercast there. We talk about them. They're powered by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Go to fantasypoints.com. Use code 21Vipers10. Get yourself a nice, cool 10% off your subscription. This is a subscription you want to get going into the season. This is going to make a difference between winning and losing. And I think it was like 90% of people with a subscription last year ended up making their playoffs. So make sure you head over to fantasypoints.com, get that subscription, subscribe to the Vipercast, subscribe to whatever we got. We got the podcast there. We got it on Apple. We got it on Spotify, Anchor. I don't know, you name it, we got it on there. Make sure you're tuning in. Support us. We love you. Take care.